This is 5 Live Formula One with Jenny Gow.
Hello and welcome to the Hungaroring. It is time for qualifying and the crowd are in a high state of anticipation. There's a few Mexican waves rippling around turns 11 and 12 at the moment. It's a thing of glory to see. Some dark clouds overhead, but actually, if I turn to my left, there is blue sky and little white clouds. So conditions looking favourable after a wet practice session, which saw Nicholas Latifi for Williams topping the timesheets. There was a ripple of applause in the media centre apparently, and I think people just rather felt that it was a nice story to latch on to. Harry Benjamin, feel-good factor for your commentary today.
It was a feel-good factor. Nicholas Latifi in the hunt for pole position, first time ever. Not quite, I don't think, sadly, although it was a really good feel-good. Albon up there as well in the third, but I think with the changeable conditions in that final practice session, very much last man across the line, with that dry line starting to develop. We've had the W Series racing in between sessions, and that showcased just how dry the track has become, but there are some looming clouds, as you suggest.
There certainly are. By the way, Alice Powell. Oh, gosh, OK, hang on a minute. Don't listen now if you don't want to know the results. I might have just given it away. Alice Powell won from Jamie Chadwick in second place. So a strong British podium there. So let's see what we can get coming up. I think it's fair to say, Mark Priestley, former F1 mechanic, that it's a Ferrari... It's a Ferrari-suited track, and they have to perform.
Yeah, totally do. They're a long way behind in both championships. Their only hope, and this really is their only hope because it's an enormous gap, is to start winning comfortably, but not even just winning, because Charles Leclerc, with 10 races to go, could win every single Grand Prix left in this season and still not win the championship. That's still a mathematical possibility. So he needs to win, but he also needs his teammate to be right up there with him, taking points away from their main rivals, Red Bull and Max Verstappen. And for that to happen, I firmly believe, of course it has to start right here this afternoon, but I firmly believe Ferrari need to come out and really prioritise one driver, that driver being Charles Leclerc, over and above Carlos Sainz. So it all starts in this session where they have to deliver.
They certainly do. There's a few flares being let off in the grandstands. Drive It Out, a new campaign launched by Formula One earlier today, aiming to try and tackle some of the incidents, abuse, toxicity in the crowds. I've spoken to quite a lot of people today who are here as fans, and a lot of them saying it's brilliant, the atmosphere is great, there's a really good mix of people out there. A few stories dotted around saying not so pleasant things, but important, I think, at this moment in time, Harry, for all of the drivers, for F1 and the FIA to come together and kind of call time and say enough is enough.
100%, absolutely, with this campaign that Formula One have introduced, and glad to see them introducing that fairly swiftly after, I think it was Austria, where we first started to see a lot of the rumblings and the sort of unpleasantness amongst the grandstands and the fans that turn up, and they pay a lot of money to come and watch Formula One cars and the support categories go round racing. It's the pinnacle of motorsport, and fans coming along who want to support their driver, their team, no matter who it is, it should not matter. Everyone is there to have a great fun time, and hopefully this message cuts through hopefully the small minority of people who have gone around and are causing this unpleasant behaviour.
What do we think of flares, by the way? I'm just looking out, and there are so many orange flares, the smoke drifting across the circuit. I just wonder if I know I'm a party pooper, but time to call time on the flares?
I don't like them either.
Well, there were moments in Austria, I think it was, wasn't it, where you could almost argue there might have been a safety issue, where it was, if the wind's going the wrong way,
not see the track.
Exactly right. So as soon as that becomes a problem, then of course we have to step in and stop it. But it's great that we've got such passionate fans. It's great there's a kind of carnival atmosphere, and everybody's getting behind their guy. We just need to make sure that it stays the right side of that line.
Hashtag BBC F1, let us know your thoughts. Sebastian Vettel's announced his retirement from the sport, as well as Toto Wolff just comes out of the FIA office wearing a rather large Mercedes overcoat. He just models it with the hood up. I don't think it's going to rain. What was the latest percentage chance of rain?
30% as of 15:45. So it's basically not going to rain.
Well, the clouds above me, I can say as I look to the final turns, are very grey, very overcast. But I have to say they are moving sort of relatively swiftly. I could see us getting a few spits and spots here and there. But it's warm as the cars go out on track. And Sebastian Vettel in the Aston Martin, one of the first out.
He is indeed straight out on that C4 red soft tyre, as is Kevin Magnussen, Stroll, Schumacher, all making their way to the end of the pit lane now as the green flag is on, and Q1 is underway as we get this first part of qualifying to set the back few rows of the grid. The grey clouds do look very ominous on the pictures we're seeing along the main straight, but then we get the helicopter shot and it actually looks rather nice. There's even a hint of blue sky out there, so I think it's definitely a bit misleading. It depends where you look. Round of applause going on in the Aston Martin camp on the Sebastian Vettel side of the garage, of course, Mark Priestley, because he had an off in that final practice, brought out the red flag, and although it didn't look like the biggest shunt in the world, the rear and the front right took an impact.
Yeah, that's right. It's your worst nightmare as a team member, because there's not a lot of time really between FP3 and then qualifying. I don't know exactly which parts have been changed yet. We haven't had that information, but a lot of work going on, and it looks like it was a fairly close call, but the team have done a great job, and the car is now out on the circuit. And just to throw a tiny little piece of jeopardy in when it comes to the weather, I have just seen a report floating around on the internet that says we could well get some rain in Q2.
I think we want a bit of rain, spice things up a bit. Certainly, for those of you who would like to sync up, Q1 is underway. 16 minutes and 38, 37, 36, 35 seconds remaining of this first session, when we lose the first 5 drivers at the bottom of the pack, as we see the Haas car of Kevin Magnussen coming across the line now to start his first flying lap down to the braking zone of turn 1. Over 600 metres, the length of that first straight into turn 1. DRS open. This, of course, a Haas that is built with upgrades. Only one Haas has all the big upgrades. They've been delaying over the last couple of races, and they're still trying to optimise them the best they can this weekend to get the most out of that Haas. But Kevin Magnussen and Mick Schumacher have both been up in the times at the moment, but practice has been so difficult to gauge. It's not going to be until now that we get a proper view of how things stack up, especially with those Haas upgrades. But opening first lap for Kevin Magnussen, seems to be keeping it nice and tight and tidy, coming through the right-left chicane now into the middle sector of the lap. Super tricky. You've got to get a nice flow through here and carry as much speed as you can.
Yeah, totally. And in the same way that we were talking earlier on in FP3 about the drivers having to find their way in the early laps in those wet conditions, they kind of got to do it again, because although they were out in the dry yesterday, a lot of the rubber that would have been building up over Friday's practice sessions will have been washed away. Some of that grip will have gone, will have dissipated. So they have now got to sort of really find their way around on these early laps, just to see where the braking points are again, how early can they get on the throttle. So these early laps are for that reason, and they'll gradually build up as the session rolls on.
Kevin Magnussen crosses the line to go fastest. It's the only time on the board at the moment. It's a 1:23.88 for the Danish driver. We're currently riding on board with the Mercedes of Lewis Hamilton. It has been a tricky weekend so far for the 7-time world champion, who navigates the right-left chicane now coming into turn 10. The Mercedes has seemed to lack a lot of pace so far. Verstappen also going quickly too, though. Much quicker, indeed, than Lewis Hamilton at the moment. Lance Stroll goes fastest at 1:22. So time's tumbling every time they come across the checkered flag. Vettel gets himself up into 4th. Lewis Hamilton approaching the penultimate corner now, slings it into the left-hand sweeper, nice and gentle on the throttle. Couldn't quite do that in the wet practice 3. Round the final corner for Lewis Hamilton. On the accelerator, take a bit of curve, but not too much. Avoid track limits, and it's across the line, and it's fastest, a 1:19.732. Jenny.
Yeah, I'm intrigued to see what Mercedes can do. They ran quite a lot of experimental setup yesterday. They didn't find a convergence until later, so really curious. Can they find some form? They need to. They looked horrible yesterday, quite frankly, but George Russell putting in a decent time out. They're going into 3rd place at the moment.
Yeah, it was getting a bit squiggly there in that final sector, though, coming out. He goes third fastest. Verstappen, though, now fastest, Mark Priestley, 1:19.0.
Yeah, on the Mercedes front, they struggled yesterday. They struggled again in the wet. You know, the wet is one of those things that often levels the playing field a little bit. And you might have thought, well, maybe Mercedes would have really been crying out for a wet session just to bring them back into contention with the top two. But actually, what they really struggled with most is getting tyre temperature into their tyres in the wet conditions and the cooler conditions earlier on. So maybe now that the temperature's crept up just by a couple of degrees and the track is dry again, maybe Mercedes can start just working on fine-tuning that performance, getting the tyre temperature in and getting more comfortable again in that car.
As both Ferraris in tandem leave their garages, Sainz and Leclerc coming out on track now, the last of the two drivers to make it out on track. Verstappen, though, with the fastest at the moment. Hamilton, Russell, Perez, Bottas, the top 5. Stroll, Magnussen, Tsunoda, Zhou, Albon, the top 10. Vettel, Gasly, Latifi, as we await times from Alonso, Norris, Schumacher, Ocon, Ricciardo, Leclerc and Sainz. Lando Norris is on a fast lap at the moment through the chicane, though runs out quite wide, just about saves it, on for a personal best at the moment, but needs to find a bit more time in this middle sector. Jenny.
Yeah, I've got a bird's eye view of the last couple of turns as I look out, and traffic may well be an issue. It's a short track, it's a fiddly track, a little bit like a go-kart circuit, and just bigger. And trying to find your gap is problematic as Max Verstappen almost comes to a halt. And just behind him, George Russell trying to get through as well. It's a little bit messy down here.
It's getting messy on the messages from race control as well. Track limits, violations starting to pop up. The edge of the track is defined by the white line as Lando Norris goes second fastest behind Max Verstappen by about half a second in his McLaren. Mick Schumacher just had a time deleted. So as well as managing traffic, managing the track limits is going to be another crucial point. As we saw in France and indeed Austria in the last two rounds, it can really affect your qualifying if you come across the line ever so slightly above the outside the white line. That lap time is deleted as Alonso goes fifth fastest. Yeah,
it'll be a slam dunk if all four tyres cross the white line. That will be it. A lap time will be deleted, and this session is going to get quicker and quicker and quicker. The fastest lap times, I'm sure, are going to come right towards the end, and Q1 is of course when we've got all 20 cars on track, and so managing that space, looking for the gaps, is an even bigger challenge. So this idea of trying to navigate slow traffic when you're on a flying lap is going to be a really tricky one. We're going to have to keep an eye on it.
You just heard the sound riding on board with Sebastian Vettel coming across the line there, but had to take a big chunk of steering, anti-steering lock coming into the final corner as the rear stepped out of him in his Aston Martin. He's 12th fastest at the moment, made that 13th as Alex Albon gets his Williams up into the top 8. Latifi also on a good run at the moment, coming around the final corner now. Let's just see what it's going to be for Nicholas Latifi, who of course topped free practice 3 in the wet. It's 11th for Latifi. Jenny.
Just thinking about Ferraris, I just watched them follow each other. So it's Sainz followed by Leclerc going round to start a flying lap, if I'm correct. We saw them tow each other in France. There's not really that much you can do to help your teammate here, is there?
Not so much in terms of the tow. The straight is relatively short, and for the rest of the lap, you're more likely to hamper each other, in all honesty. So I'm not sure that's part of the game plan here. I mean, any tow is helpful, but I think trying to orchestrate that might be too much of a risk.
Coming around the final corner now, though, it is the McLaren of Daniel Ricciardo who puts his McLaren into 8th position at the moment. We're still awaiting with 10 minutes to go. The first times on the board from the Ferrari drivers. First over the line, it's Carlos Sainz. It's 4th fastest for the Spaniard, a 1:19.3. Let's see what his teammate Leclerc can do. It's 10th fastest for Leclerc. So not setting the world alight, but that is their first lap. They came out late from the pits, both of them, and they're swapping positions. I wonder if they're trying something here.
Maybe, yeah, it does look like they're just, that was Sainz letting Leclerc through this time around, so maybe they are going to go for that tow, perhaps.
Quite possibly. It's not in a massively long straight here, just over 610 metres the run down to turn 1, but it was Sainz who was out in front of Leclerc as they came out of the pit box, and now they have swapped positions going into turn 1. Verstappen and Perez the top 2.
Sorry, mate, whatever they're trying, not working so far, is it? They are 10th and 4th at the moment as things stand.
Yeah, Sainz getting the better lap time in there. Currently in the elimination zone, 16th downwards, it's Ocon, Vettel, Tsunoda, Gasly and Mick Schumacher. The sound you're hearing is on board with the Japanese racer Yuki Tsunoda in the AlphaTauri, coming up to the approach of turn 4 now. The fast left-hander, very easy to run out wide and break track limits. How does he manage it? It's a nice and tidy line for Yuki Tsunoda, who is up on the time to get out of Q1, the elimination zone. It's a personal best for Yuki at the moment. Fernando Alonso going very quickly too. He's currently further up in 8th. As Gasly, Yuki Tsunoda's teammate, also going quickly. As Tsunoda now comes into the middle section of the lap, Ferrari gets out the way. Jenny.
Yeah, just thinking about those McLarens, they set really good time yesterday. Lando Norris, the second fastest time of anybody. The car seems very much suited to this track, so I'll be really interested to see what they can do around this Hungaroring. How far forward can they go when it gets to the final throes of qualifying?
Well, Lando Norris, second fastest lap time, 2/10 off at the moment from Max Verstappen. That McLaren does seem to be working well around here. Daniel Ricciardo down in 10th at the moment, but going quicker too. Yuki Tsunoda comes across the line. He goes up to 11th fastest, to 1:19.9. His teammate Pierre Gasly coming currently 19th at the moment. He's coming around the final corner now. A bit of a twitch on the steering wheel as he has a couple of goes at turning it in. DRS wide open and cuts the beam. It's 7th fastest for the Frenchman, a 1:19.5. 7.5 minutes left of Q1. Verstappen, Norris, Perez, Russell, Alonso, the top 5 at risk. Zhou Guanyu, Latifi, Stroll, Vettel and Mick Schumacher, who hasn't actually got a representative lap time on the board yet. He's in the pits, but he had a lap time deleted for track limits.
Yeah, and up at the front, Max Verstappen going very, very quickly. Fastest middle sector for him, but Charles Leclerc now putting a lap together too. His first sector was blisteringly fast, and he continues through the second sector, close to matching that. So this is going to be really tight between the two title protagonists, if we can still call them that, as the lap times come to a conclusion.
Max Verstappen going very quickly as well in the middle sector and the final sector. Actually, he's currently got the fastest time and is looking like he's going to improve that. The sound you're hearing is on board with the Ferrari of Charles Leclerc. Personal best sector 1, sector 2, currently in 13th. He is improving his lap time as Max Verstappen does go quicker, still at the top of the timing beam at the moment with a 1:18.5. Leclerc now coming into the final corner. Personal best sector 1, personal best sector 2. What's it going to be for the Monegasque?
It's not enough.
It's second though. It's a 1:18.8.
Yeah, it's about a tenth, nearly 3 tenths off Verstappen. So not yet comfortable, Leclerc, because it was a decent lap. But look, where's that pace come from for Verstappen? I mean, it's early days yet. Sainz pops in with a very similar lap time to Verstappen in second. Leclerc just not quite as comfortable as he was looking yesterday.
Yeah, Sainz having a much better run of it there. Just a 50,000th of a second back from Verstappen. We're currently watching the Aston Martin driver of Lance Stroll on a decent lap. Personal best set to 1 and 2. He's currently in the drop zone at the moment. In 18th, he's got Latifi and Zhou ahead of him. Magnussen is in danger at the moment. A 1:19.9 for the Haas driver as Stroll comes around the final corner now. What's it going to be for the Canadian? It's 9th fastest. He finds 6/10 of a second for Lance Stroll. That puts Magnussen into the bottom 5, 16th at the moment, as Sebastian Vettel comes out and joins his teammate on track.
Yeah, disappointing start to the session for the two Haas cars. As you pointed out, Harry, big upgrade, at least on Magnussen's car. The only really big upgrade they've had all season on a car that was pretty much the same car that came out the box right back in the very first days of this championship season. They've developed that, they've tweaked it, they've made it work. They've had some strong results. They've brought a really big upgrade package here. And at the moment, Mick Schumacher's last and Kevin Magnussen in 16th and inside the drop zone.
Indeed, as his teammate goes for another flyer, Jenny.
Yeah, we've often seen with these big upgrade packages, it takes a couple of races to really get the head around them, to understand how they work, to get it all working in unison. So let's see what Magnussen can do. He's currently out on track for the Haas, trying to put together a decent time. And just on Aston Martin, they've bought a new rear wing with them this weekend, much more in line with kind of the philosophy from last year. It's with the rules, there's nothing wrong with it. The FIA have been kind of across it all the way, but I just wonder, it's definitely going to set a trend if it seems to be working, and Stroll putting it into 9th is a pretty impressive performance right now.
Certainly the Aston Martins have been looking quick with that new rear wing update. Latest victim of track limits, Yuki Tsunoda, has had a lap time deleted. That puts him back down in 19th position, so he's got to do that all over again. His teammate Gasly is in 10th Magnussen, Schumacher, Zhou Guanyu, all out on laps at the moment. They are all in that elimination zone, along with Latifi and Vettel. Mick Schumacher really does need to get a bit of a hurry on here to try and complete a lap. Personal best in Sector 1 and Sector 2. He's half a second up at the moment, but has he kept it tidy? He has done, his teammate has done in the final sector. Magnussen goes and finds 8.5 tenths of a second to put himself up into 8th place. This is the sound then of the German Mick Schumacher in the Haas. He doesn't have the upgrades on this car. He crosses the line and he's just behind his teammate though. It's 9th for Mick Schumacher, a 1:19.1.
Good lap from Schumacher, yeah, and his compatriot, the man we now know will retire at the end of the season, Sebastian Vettel, out on track as well with probably just one lap. One flying lap is all he'll get to drag himself out of what is currently 19th position and elimination from this qualifying session and get himself up and through into Q2. Let's keep an eye on him.
Zhou Guanyu in the Alfa Romeo has just come across the line and set a blistering lap. Goes 5th fastest, so 1:18.9 for the Chinese racer. As Alex Albon comes across, loses a bit of time in that final sector. The Williams stays in 14th. Latifi and Vettel we're awaiting times for at the moment. This is the sound of Nicholas Latifi riding on board through the helmet camera. He pips his teammate to 14th. Nicholas Latifi has found a little bit of an upturn and pace, I think, having topped free practice 3 as Vettel gets into 12th. So that puts Albon, Bottas, Ocon, Ricciardo and Tsunoda currently in the dropout zone with 2.5 minutes of Q1 remaining.
Yeah, Esteban Ocon, that's not a good position for him to be in. A lot of talk around Alonso this weekend, both in terms of his birthday, but also in terms of his future. But he's a man that's kind of firing on all cylinders at the moment, Alonso. He's been exciting on track to watch. He's got some good performances still at that grand old age of 41. Esteban Ocon, though, currently in P18.
Jenny.
Work to do for Daniel Ricciardo as well. He's currently in the drop zone, 19th, where his teammate Lando Norris is up in 6th. So some big differences out there between teammates, just finding conditions very different.
And I think traffic is going to play a factor here in these last couple of minutes. Fernando Alonso just in front of Daniel Ricciardo, both about to start flying laps. Ricciardo just has to drop back and find himself a gap, but in turn he's having to keep an eye on who's behind him as well. Alonso is first of that gaggle of cars to come across the line and begin his fly into the braking zone of turn 1. The Spaniard, who turned 41 yesterday on Friday, has a little bit of a slide coming out of the exit of turn 1. DRS open, makes his way now down into turn 2. He's currently in 11th, but he needs to find a little bit more time, I think, for him to feel truly comfortable.
Yeah, at the front end, though, both Ferraris going very quickly. Lewis Hamilton finding some pace, a very fast first sector for him. Middle sector backs it up pretty well too. Charles Leclerc and Carlos Sainz looking like he's on an absolute flyer right now. So up at the front, it's status quo. They might just change positions between the top 3, but I don't think anyone's going to get in the way of those. As Lewis Hamilton goes quickest with 1 minute to go, but I think both Ferraris, potentially Verstappen as well, could well have something to say about that.
Yeah, Alonso is going well. I think we're going to be looking at everybody from Russell down having to go again. 1:19.0 the predicted dropout time, so that's the one to try and get in front as Russell follows his teammate. It's currently Mercedes 1 and 2 at the top. Hamilton ahead of Russell. Times now changing all the time. Alonso coming into the final couple of corners, navigates a little bit of traffic that does get out of the way fairly swiftly round the final corner for Fernando Alonso. It's 12th at the moment. What's it going to be when he crosses the line? It's 5th for Fernando Alonso in the Alpine. Hamilton and Russell top things at the moment. Ricciardo gets a good time on the board. He goes into 6th place as the number 1 car of Max Verstappen comes across the line to start another lap. Stroll 14th. Ocon is in trouble. He's in 19th. Just 5 seconds left to go here, but he's up to 8th is Esteban Ocon. Yuki Tsunoda is next on the timing beam. He's down in 20th. He's had a lap time deleted. He knows he can find time, but it's not enough for Yuki Tsunoda. 16th on the bubble at the moment is Lance Stroll, but that's not going to be enough for Yuki Tsunoda to make it through to the next part of qualifying. Perez gets up into 14th. Gasly crosses the line in 13th as we now ride on board with the Williams of Alex Albon, currently last. He gets up to 18th position ahead of Vettel and Latifi currently, but we're still waiting lap times from Latifi. Norris crosses the line. It's 5th.
Yeah, good lap from Norris. Latifi's on a bit of a flyer, but I'm not sure it's going to be enough. He's the fastest first sector of anybody. We said the lap times will get quicker and quicker as the session comes to a close, but it's not enough from Latifi. The checkered flag is out. Hamilton tops a timesheet from his teammate George Russell. Not that that means anything at this point, other than that they're through to Q2.
Absolutely. Out, no longer taking part in qualifying. Yuki Tsunoda will line up 16th ahead of the Williams of Alex Albon. Sebastian Vettel down in 18th, comes across the checkered flag. Now Pierre Gasly will be bitterly disappointed with a P19, and Nicholas Latifi, who has shown some good flashes of pace so far this weekend, particularly in this Q1 session. Unfortunately, didn't translate in the end, just 20th. Here's Albon.
Sorry.
Simple one word, sorry. So Albon perhaps making a mistake, not happy with the performance of that Williams at the moment. They'll start 17th and 20th, barring any penalties later down the line.
Yeah, it's disappointing. I mean, not unexpected perhaps for the Williams. Disappointing for Gasly, down in 19th. Tsunoda is 16th. Vettel, I think, will be really bitterly disappointed. There's been a lot of attention on him this weekend with regards to his future, but he's been beaten here by his teammate, Lance Stroll, clawing his way through in P15, but Vettel down in 18, and his afternoon's over.
I'm afraid where I'm in. Couple of hundreds to P15. No, man.
You can just tell how gutted he is by that Vettel 18th. Stroll, his teammate, just nicked through into 15th. Jenny.
Funnily enough, I was thinking, it doesn't sound like he really matters too much to him.
Do you not think? I thought you...
I know. I don't know why I feel that.
Do you think he's being sarcastic?
So no. I was just you were saying, oh, you can tell, and I was just thinking, can I feel that? He sounded upset when he slid off the road earlier on. But I wonder, once you've decided that you're going to leave a team and you've made your mind up and you've gone through those sleepless nights of thinking, have I made the right decision or not? They're in, a car which is, I think, underperforming to where we thought it should be. I wonder how much he really cares at the moment, P18.
Okay, Pierre, lap time deleted, track limit turn 5.
Turn 5? How can it be turn 5?
Okay, so that's P19, lap time deleted.
Well, that will explain Pierre Gasly being down in 19th position then, but his teammate Tsunoda is also down there. Both AlphaTauris falling foul of the race directors and stewards, crossing the line. Turn 5, well, it is easily done there. So I don't think it's the most unexpected corner for it to happen on.
No, but interesting that he didn't think it had happened, so he wasn't particularly aware that might be an area he'd crossed over. So, it's a surprise for him. I say the one that I'm interested in there, Sergio Perez down in P13. I mean, Max Verstappen's up in P4, and I know the eventual positions in Q1 don't necessarily matter as long as you make it through, which he has, but he's never seemed quite as comfortable as Max Verstappen all weekend so far. And if we just fast forward a little bit and think more about the race tomorrow and the championship as a whole, Max Verstappen, although he has this comfortable lead, if it starts to get tight at some point in the season, he's going to need his teammate alongside him. He's going to need his teammate to be in the form that he was in sort of 3 or 4 races ago, isn't he? At the moment, just not on the same level as Verstappen.
Not quite. The other discrepancy, I think, might be worth noting. Leclerc, 8th, 4.5 tenths or so back from his teammate Carlos Sainz, who finished that session 3rd fastest, and usually it is Leclerc who has the slight advantage on the 1 lap pace here.
Yeah, we didn't see Leclerc's final lap, did we? So I don't know whether there was a mistake or anything happened, but let's hear from Latifi.
I missed in the last corner. Sorry, guys.
Go.
And that was Nicholas Latifi coming through the final corner and basically having to steer the wrong way out of it to catch the rear, and that cost him, I think it was 7 tenths that cost him in the end.
Yeah, because actually his first sector was really good. He had the fastest sector of anybody in the first sector on his flying lap there. We said the session would get quicker and quicker. He was one of the last guys to cross the line, as he was at the end of FP3, but he let himself down in the last corner, didn't he?
I wonder if Latifi could have got through to Q2 actually with that fastest first sector. Latifi on a roll here. Jenny.
Yeah, just to give Mick Schumacher as well. He did well out there in the Haas. He's not running the upgrades this weekend, it's worth remembering. So he's in a car that he understands, whereas Magnussen is not in a car that he understands because he's got all the new upgrades. But Schumacher's still managing to get through to the second part of qualifying. So Haas, in general, bearing in mind they're not spending as much as everybody else, even with the cost cap in place, doing a decent job at the minute.
Certainly is. We're in that lull period now as we await for Q2 to get underway. And that midfield pack is always a fascinating one to watch in Formula One. And it seems it switches race on race. Alfa Romeo, they had a bit of a quiet weekend so far, but they're both up there on the fringes of the top 10 at the moment. Valtteri Bottas finished that in 10th. Zhou Guanyu put in a great lap time. He went up to 11th in the end. So in a fierce battle with the Hasses, the Alpines also within touching distance.
I wonder if there's a new dynamic with this seat opening up with Sebastian Vettel's going to vacate. I wonder if drivers like Schumacher sort of now feel like they've got a shop window to potentially go for in the future.
Quite possibly. Well, as we await for the second part of qualifying to get underway here in Hungary, we have lost the first 5 drivers from P16 down to P20. Yuki Tsunoda, Alex Albon, Sebastian Vettel, Pierre Gasly and Nicholas Latifi will line up last and 20th. Q2 about to get underway at a dry Hungarian Grand Prix. We had a lot of rain earlier on, but currently dry. The dry tyres out in force. Hamilton topped the session ahead of Russell. Can they continue that form into Q2? We'll have to wait and see. He is absolutely on fire at the moment, Lewis Hamilton. But it hasn't been easy for him so far this weekend. P1, P2, though, he'll be pleased to see that at the end of the first session. But now the serious stuff for them starts to get underway as they make their way towards the end of the pit lane. And the green light is on. Magnussen also first out along with his teammate Schumacher. For those of you who want to have a little resync, 14 minutes and 40, 39, 38, 37 seconds on the clock as Q2 underway.
Yeah, so traffic a little bit less of an issue this time. We've of course got only 15 cars hitting the circuit during these 15 minutes of Q2 as opposed to the full 20 in Q1. So traffic not so much of an issue. Still a very dry track. That threat of rain not providing any reality anywhere near at the moment. But this is the one that really matters. This is the one that's going to decide who gets through to that all-important top 10 shootout.
Definitely worth keeping an eye on that second Red Bull of Sergio Perez, see if he can unlock a bit more pace in this second part of qualifying, which will determine the grid spots from 11th through to 15th position. And Fernando Alonso and Esteban Ocon standing by in Alpine, waiting to be sent out as the cars out on track. Hamilton, Russell, Sainz, Norris, Leclerc, Magnussen, Schumacher, all trying to find a bit of space. Jenny.
Yeah, I find it fascinating that Hamilton was out there and set the fastest time. I mean, he goes around here very well. 8 wins, 8 pole positions as well, I think. And it's a circuit he absolutely loves. Yesterday it was horrible for him, just couldn't get to grips with it. They did a lot of work overnight. I just wonder what they've found in comparison to your Ferraris and Red Bulls and just how far up they may be able to start this race. It's absolutely fascinating.
I think, Mark, they're maybe quite pleased that it's not as wet as we might have predicted, because in practice 3, both drivers were really downbeat throughout the whole session.
Yeah, and I think after yesterday, when they really struggled in the dry, they'd have been crying out for rain, but when the rain came, things got even worse. And I think it was largely around tyre temperature. This time around we're dry, of course, and it looks like the Mercedes starting to learn how to switch their tyres on in these conditions. And never underestimate how much of an impact that can have. Tyres being in the right temperature window or just outside can be the difference between sort of almost driving 2 completely different cars. So Hamilton on track right now, followed not far behind him with his teammate George Russell. Let's see what they can deliver.
Now, currently, Hamilton keeping it nice and tidy. Overall best Sector 1 at the moment, but that's not really a surprise. He's the first person out on track. So we'll see how Leclerc fares. His timing also being shown to us as he starts his first flyer. Hamilton, though, coming through the chicane and having to really manage the rear of that car, just stepping out. He's been saying this Mercedes has been so fragile all weekend long. They've been 1.9 seconds off the pace in practice as the Red Bull of Max Verstappen politely gets out of the way of Hamilton, coming down into turn 12. Now through the penultimate left-hand sweeper of turn 13, which brings you nicely out to the left before you sling it into the right-hander, the final corner. Take a little bit of curb, but not too much. All 4 wheels cannot cross that white line. It's the fastest lap time. It's a 1:19.0 for Hamilton, ahead of Kevin Magnussen, who's in second with a 1:19.3. Make that third as George Russell gets into the 1:18 to the 1:18.8.
Yeah, interesting stuff from the Mercedes. Both kept it under control, but it's Russell that takes first blood out of that particular team. We've got the 2 Red Bulls emerging on the circuit. We've got Max Verstappen I think following his teammate Sergio Perez round first, so we'll see what they can do, and Lando Norris as well. But here comes Carlos Sainz to cross the line.
He does. He goes second behind his teammate, nearly a tenth or so in it, less than that, as Leclerc with a 1:18.7, Sainz a 1:18.8 ahead of Russell, Hamilton, Magnussen and Mick Schumacher. Currently 7th now is Lando Norris in the McLaren, once again showing their form.
6 tenths.
Nearly 6.5 tenths. That's a 1:81 from Lando Norris. But Max Verstappen has set the overall best Sector 1, purple, and he's looking good in Sector 2 at the moment as well.
Yeah,
purple mini sectors as an overall purple sector. He's almost up by over 3.5 tenths round the final corner now for Max Verstappen, the reigning champion. Crosses the line. He's lost time in that final. No, he hasn't. He's found time. Perez has lost time. Verstappen coming through the final corner.
This
now
could be well into the 17s, isn't it?
He's looking very sharp indeed. He's 9th at the moment, not for long though, as he goes fastest. It's a 1:17.7. It was Perez who was going a little bit slower. He got up into 3rd though, but look at the gap. It's not just 8 tenths to his teammate Perez, it's 4 tenths to Lando Norris in 2nd.
Yeah, that's a big gap. Lando Norris, a decent lap. Andrew Benson, the BBC Sports chief F1 writer, just telling us that Ferraris are on used tyres. We couldn't see that from here, but that might explain a little bit of their lack of pace in comparison to the front two. Leclerc in P4, Sainz in P5, but I'm sure when things really matter, they will of course stick on the new tyres. We might see something more from them.
Esteban Ocon coming through the fast left-hander, turn 4. It's been a bit of a quiet weekend for the Frenchman, who of course took his first Grand Prix win here at the Hungarian last time around. He makes his way through the chicane. He's currently 11th fastest. It's looking like a tidy lap. We'll see where he ends up. Jenny.
Yeah, just come down to the final turn where there are so many Max Verstappen fans. The grandstand's pretty much all orange, and when he set fastest time, they of course erupted into loud, spontaneous cheering. They would dearly love, wouldn't they, for him to win around here. Not done it before, so let's see what he can do today ahead of the race tomorrow.
More track limit violations though. Sergio Perez, the latest victim. He was already about 8 tenths of his teammate. He'll have to go again though. No time on the board now for exceeding track limits in that last flying lap. Let's see though what Esteban Ocon can do. He gets up into 3rd in his Alpine. It's a 1:18.7, personal bests all round. His teammate Fernando Alonso is the sound you can hear right now, riding on board with the Alpine driver. He set a purple Sector 2, overall fastest at the moment. How's it looking in this final sector? It's looking good. He should be on here to try and be near and about his teammate, and he's gone and picked him to 2nd, a 1:17.9, 2 tenths off Verstappen, as we see Bottas cross the line in 6th, and his teammate Zhou Guanyu follows him neatly behind. The Chinese racer cuts the beam in 4th for the Alfa Romeo.
Yeah, track evolution really playing a factor here. It's getting quicker and quicker and quicker. A lot of the rubber washed away during FP3 with all of that rain, so now as the rubber goes down, we are really seeing it ramp up and the time's tumbling. So this could well come down to the last few laps, and unfortunately for Sergio Perez, it definitely is going to come down to the last few laps, because the one lap he's set so far, where he actually got himself up into the top 5, was deleted for crossing track limits.
Okay, we've lost that lap for track limits at turn 5.
And that was Sergio Perez just being told there where exactly he went over track limits, and it's... I think that's a bit harsh. We've just seen a replay, and the front right, at least, was very much on the white line. I don't think it was past it. I think it was on. I
mean, if we're using a Hawkeye-type technology here, that's not a slam dunk, is it? If you're looking from a top-down shot, and a little bit like a football crossing a line to score a goal, it's got to be completely over the line. I don't think it was. So, I don't know. They obviously think differently, and the lap time's gone. I don't think he'll be able to argue his way out of it at this stage, but he's got to go again. No,
but interestingly, that was exactly the same corner where Pierre Gasly was done as well, and he really took that by surprise. So I wonder if suddenly that will pique their interests across Red Bull and AlphaTauri with a bit of a chat with race control. But for the time being, no time on the board for Sergio Perez. He'll have to get one in. 6 minutes and 56, 55, 54 seconds to go in this second part of qualifying. We're currently going to lose 11th through to 15th, which at the moment is occupied by Lewis Hamilton, Lance Stroll, Kevin Magnussen, Mick Schumacher and Sergio Perez, fastest of them all. Currently Max Verstappen ahead of Alonso, Norris, Ricciardo and Zhou Guanyu, the top 5, but Lewis Hamilton gearing up for a flyer now round the final corner as he gets going for a lap that can hopefully challenge and get him through into the final part of qualifying.
Yeah, so the Mercedes looking better than they have done for most of the weekend so far. Let's see what Hamilton can do. DRS open as he goes barreling into turn 1, slams on the brakes, keeps it under control, drifts out on the exit, but nice and tidy, nowhere near crossing the white line. Down the hill he goes towards turns 3 and 4. We lose track of him on our pictures, but there he is. Out he comes the other side. Sorry, turn 3 now, turn 4. He's under control at the moment. It doesn't look like he's setting the world alight. His teammate George Russell actually going a tiny bit quicker than him.
Yeah, he is. He's not far behind him either. So there's two Mercedes running in tandem. Russell 10th at the moment. There. Hamilton 11th. You're right, a little bit of a twitch now as he approaches the right-hander and then the left chicane. But Hamilton making his way through the tight, twisty middle sector. No traffic to worry about at the moment. He's got a clear run of it through turn 10 and 11, and now into the approach of the right-hander 90-degree heavy braking zone. Turn 12, he's finding time, nearly half a second at the moment. Personal best. This should be a decent lap, but can he hang on in these last couple of corners? Through the penultimate corner now, nice and smooth on exit here. Final corner, track limits being watched here too. If you run out too far to the left, Hamilton keeps it under control. DRS wide open across the line. It's third, a 1:18.0 for Lewis Hamilton, and his teammate George Russell. Where does he go? It's fifth for Russell, a 1:18.1 with 5 minutes to go then. Hamilton third, Russell fifth.
Yeah, interesting. It's not enough for Mercedes, but decent enough to get them through to Q3 at this point. But as we said earlier, circuit evolution, the fact that the rubber's going down, the track's getting quicker and quicker, might mean the decisive lap times are the ones that come last. Leclerc and Sainz both out on circuit at the moment. It's going to be Leclerc that finishes his lap first. We're on board with him as he comes into the final corner, turn 14, the long right-hander. In he goes, fighting with the steering wheel a little bit, runs out wide, not too wide though, and across the line, Leclerc goes second with a 1:17.7, just behind Max Verstappen.
And here comes his teammate, though. Carlos Sainz comes across the line. DRS open for the Spaniard. He puts his Ferrari up into fourth. Here's Perez.
There's some drops of rain on the back strip.
Copy.
Well, now we're talking. A bit of spots of rain on the back straight. That's not what Sergio Perez wants. He has put in a lap time now. It's got him up into ninth spot as Schumacher comes across. It's not enough for Schumacher either. 15th, he's in trouble. Zhou on the bubble in 10th. Jenny.
Wind has picked up a little bit. There are some very dark clouds over the far side of the circuit, but I don't think it's going to amount to anything. The wind's too strong.
Yeah, but Perez could be in trouble here because, and he's had his lap time reinstated, Sergio Perez. That one we talked about being seemingly not very obvious. There obviously has been a conversation with race control because he's had his lap time reinstated, which I've not heard of before. It's not reflected in the timesheets yet, or perhaps it has been, but he's now dropped down to P9 as everyone else has gone quicker. P9 is not going to be enough, and if that rain makes any dent, any impact on this circuit, he's going to be in trouble.
I think they must have heard us because we called that clear as day, I'm pretty sure. So another look in the stewards room on that. Perez with a reinstated lap time, but he's still only down in ninth. His teammate currently fastest. Perez on another lap at the moment, but he's going so slow. He's going to have to go again. This lap's a write-off pretty much.
I think the circuit's losing time. The temperature's dropped a little bit again. Maybe that rain's having an impact. It's really not very much at the moment, but he is not making any dent in the lap time at the moment. And with only 2.5 minutes to go, plus now as he crosses the line, not improving, he's now got to recharge that battery. He's got enough time for one more flying lap. He's got to recharge his battery, he's got to get his temperatures back under control and go again one last time.
Crucially, though, nobody else is out there going quicker either. So if the track's not improving for Perez, they'll be hoping that it's not going to improve for any of the other runners behind him. Zhou, Ocon, Bottas, Magnussen, Stroll and Schumacher all need to go faster if they want to make it through to the top 10 shootout. Out on track at the moment, or I should say who's not out on track. Alonso is in the pits, as is Lewis Hamilton, and Lance Stroll is finding a little bit of time in the first sector, but only 6,000ths of a second for the Aston Martin driver.
Yeah, K-Mag as well. Kevin Magnussen putting in a good first sector. He's currently in P13. I'm sort of expecting bigger things from Esteban Ocon as well. He's on an outlap at the moment, but K-Mag setting purple sectors, purple mini sectors in the first part of the lap. Can he improve enough to start threatening that position of Sergio Perez?
He has found a bit of time, but it's not quite his personal best for Kevin Magnussen. Stroll losing a big chunk of time in that middle sector. Red Bull will be watching this with a bit of a quake in their boots, I think. If Perez can't find any more time, he's going to have to go again. Perez currently on another recharge outlap before he goes for what will be a final flyer as Lance Stroll comes across the line. What's it going to be for Lance Stroll? He doesn't improve overall in the standings. He doesn't improve his time, but he stays in 14th.
Yeah, Magnussen, I think, backed off in the middle sector. He had the fastest first sector of anybody at a couple of the mini sectors. But I think he's still on the lap. I think he's lost a huge chunk of time in the middle part of that racetrack.
Well, he's going to go again, perhaps, if he's got enough charge left in the battery, but it's going to be tight. It's going to come across the line now. It's 13th, and it stays that way for Kevin Magnussen.
Yeah, that's going to be it. He's not going to have a chance to prep. I mean, to recharge that battery, you need a full lap of prep. You know, recharging, regenning into that battery to go again and get full power. He's not got a chance to do that. So it may well be that Sergio Perez scrapes through here, but that's all it's going to be, is scraping through. Esteban Ocon, perhaps the only one, maybe Valtteri Bottas, that could do something about it.
And that is not what Red Bull need, though, from Perez to be that far down at the moment and in trouble. The two Alfa Romeos currently on the bubble. Bottas gets into the top 10. Bottas finds time. He goes up into 8th spot. That puts Perez at risk in 10th. And Perez is currently languishing down 11 as Ocon goes across the line to get into 8th place. Lando Norris going quickly as well. He's currently 6th fastest already, but he's got purple in the first sector. At risk now, Daniel Ricciardo, his teammate, in 10th. Norris has backed off completely. Ricciardo hasn't found any time in the first sector. At risk ahead of Perez. Zhou crosses the line, takes the checkered flag. He's out. He is done. Zhou Guanyu is 12th at the moment, ahead of Magnussen, Stroll and Mick Schumacher.
Sergio Perez is in the pits. He's out. He is finished. So his session is over, and that is, as you said, Harry, not what Red Bull need.
Not at all. When his teammate is currently fastest, Sergio Perez can only manage 11th, and he has come into the pit lane, as you say, Mark. The sound you're hearing is riding on board with the McLaren of Daniel Ricciardo. He's found a little bit more time in the middle sector. Can he carry that through? He's 10th at the moment. He might just be safe anyway, but he does find time. He gets up into 8th. And that puts Bottas down into 10th. It's Mick Schumacher going for another one. He is out there, but he's not finding any time. I think he's completely backed off on that one. And that just about does it for Q2 then. So Perez in the Red Bull, the big name to go out. He'll start 11th.
Yeah, hugely disappointing. Disappointing, obviously, in the moment, but disappointing when we start thinking about the race tomorrow and how Red Bull will be fighting single-handedly, assuming they manage to keep Verstappen up the front, which everything looks like they will.
Magnussen. Yeah, was locked in by Magnussen. Yeah, copy that, Checo.
So that was Sergio Perez coming and complaining into turn 2. Perez seemed to be on the race line. Magnussen very much down the inside, but I wouldn't say that was particularly blocking.
Sounds like a driver who's struggling, desperate for excuses to find reasons why he's struggling to me. I've heard it a lot, and that looked like that to me. But yeah, Perez just not happy, not comfortable, a long way from where we saw him just a few races ago.
Good job, Joe. We just missed Q3 by a tenth. Anyway, thank you guys. Finally, we're back. I'm so happy.
Happy days for Zhou Guanyu, who's had a tough couple of races, showing great pace, but qualifying has been a strength actually of Zhou Guanyu, but his races haven't quite gone to plan with that either retirements or collisions, not always of his making either, but he will start from 12th. His teammate Valtteri Bottas did nick through in the end into the top 10, but out Perez, Zhou Guanyu, Kevin Magnussen, Lance Stroll and Mick Schumacher will start 15th as we see Sergio Perez clambering out of his Red Bull. And, well, the debrief ahead of tomorrow will be a tough one to take, I think. The Hungarian, notoriously difficult to overtake on, qualifying so crucial here. And when you look at where Max Verstappen is, a 1:17.7 compared to Sergio Perez, a 1:18.5, that is a huge discrepancy.
Yeah, it really is. There's a lot of work to do there, whether it's car development going in the wrong direction for Sergio, whether it's a loss of confidence. There must be some reason, because it's so far away from where he was just a few rounds back, where he was really the driver in form in that team for a period of time. So yeah, he's got some work to do.
We have indeed, as we get in the little lull before Q3 and the top 10 gets set. But the big name to go out is Sergio Perez in the Red Bull. He'll start 11th after struggling to find pace ahead of Zhou Guanyu, Kevin Magnussen, Lance Stroll and Mick Schumacher will go from 15th. Topping that session was Max Verstappen just ahead of Charles Leclerc. It's setting up to be a good battle for pole as we head into Q3. And we get into now the crunch time for Q3. The stands are full, Jenny.
Yeah, I'm just down here with Sebastian Vettel. We're walking back. Sebastian, obviously a disappointing session, not quite what you wanted.
No, not what I wanted.
Just talk to us, because obviously the big news this weekend is the retirement, and I know that session wasn't what you wanted, but how are you feeling now that the news is out and you've had a couple of moments to take it all in, and everybody else has taken it all in? The reaction here to you has been wonderful.
Yeah, I mean, there's been really nice things that people said, but to be honest, my head is in quali still, and we had a poor day, so I can't be happy with how things went, and now the main focus is on tomorrow. So yeah, I didn't have that much time yet, to be honest, but yeah, feel happy with the decision. It's not like I regret it after a day, so yeah.
Just one final question. England-Germany tonight in the Euros. The Lioness is taking on your team. What do you reckon? Are you guys going to win, or are we going to be victorious for once?
I don't know. I'll watch it, but yeah, it would be nice, obviously, for you to win it at home. If you do lose it, then it's nice for Germany, so... Yeah,
all right, thanks.
50-50.
Thanks very much, Sebastian Vettel. At a canter, walking down the paddock. He didn't really want to speak to me, but fair play to him. He did.
Very polite from the four-time champion there. And, well, yes, it's not been the day he or Aston Martin, I suppose, particularly wanted, considering with that new rear wing they've been experimenting with. Vettel and Stroll both up there in the first two practice sessions, but then it started to go downhill, particularly for Sebastian Vettel, crashing in free practice 3. It seemed like with the mechanics' reaction to getting Vettel out for qualifying, that might have been a bit of a close call there. So to reward that with P16 and Lance Stroll P14, well, it's not the back row of the grid, so that's something.
It's not far off. It's actually P18, Vettel, isn't he? P18.
Yes,
so
apologies, it is.
He's only just in front of the back row. So I think what he'll be most disappointed about there, apart from obviously not making it through to Q2, is that his teammate did. That's what always hurts a racing driver most. The one guy you're going to be measured most, obviously, to is your teammate, because they're in the same car. And Stroll in P14, still not great, but it's a considerable chunk better than P18.
Certainly is, and Lance Stroll been struggling to get out of Q1 in the last few consecutive races, so managing to do that, a slight positive there for him. But well, the big name out, Perez, Zhou Guanyu, Kevin Magnussen, Lance Stroll and Mick Schumacher. So Magnussen 13th with that huge haul of upgrades. Well, found a little bit of time over his teammate, but I'm sure they'll be hoping to unlock that new Haas car as the, well, now the race goes by, and then into the summer break before we head to Belgium after that. The top 10 then: Verstappen, Leclerc, Alonso, Sainz, Hamilton, Norris, Russell, Ricciardo, Ocon, Bottas. We'll now head out and fight for those top 10 positions. Who's your man for pole?
Well, all weekend I've been saying Leclerc, because everything's been pointing that way. It was a decent lap from Verstappen, but I still think Leclerc has this habit of doing it, doesn't it? We talk about Leclerc buckling under pressure. He made a mistake last time out from the lead in France. Was that pressure related? Was it concentration? When it comes to pressure, and qualifying is almost always the highest point of pressure on a Grand Prix driver's weekend, he tends to deliver. So I'm going to stick with Leclerc, but this is the one that really, really counts, of course. Difficult place to overtake, as you mentioned.
Well, it is, certainly. They left Q3 very tight between Verstappen and Leclerc, just 60 thousandths of a second between them. Fernando Alonso, the old wily fox, up there as well, looking fast in that Alpine, certainly compared to his teammate Esteban Ocon, the race winner here from last year in that rather historical, action-packed Hungarian Grand Prix that we enjoyed. Currently just into Q3, down in 9th, though, at the end of Q2. So time to find for Ocon and that side of the garage. And both the McLarens once again demonstrating they have found a bit of a turn in performance this weekend.
Yeah, and encouraging for Daniel Ricciardo that he was just a couple of tenths behind his teammate and also a couple of places. So Norris in P6, Ricciardo in P8. But the lap time was close. I do think that Lando Norris was on a bit of a flyer on his final lap and then backed out. So he may have had more in the tank for Lando Norris. Again, we talked about it earlier. It was one of those sessions as the session went on, the track got faster and faster, and that could well continue in this session. So it's about choosing when you go, finding the right gaps, getting it under control and building up to that all-important final lap when it should really, really matter.
Well, Q3 now officially underway, and not a huge flurry of cars. For those of you who need another sync-up, 11 minutes, 21, 20, 19 seconds remaining of this final part of qualifying, the top 10 shootout, the battle for pole, as Charles Leclerc, 63 points back now in the Drivers' Championship, makes his way to the end of the pit lane. He's just behind Daniel Ricciardo in the McLaren, who gets out in front of him. Esteban Ocon also quickly out there too, and Lando Norris following suit.
Yeah, this is going to be really fascinating stuff, isn't it, this one? As we said, the fastest lap times may well come at the end, but getting a banker in now before things get really busy could also be really important. And whilst we don't think it's going to rain, there's always that ever-present threat. There are some very dark clouds. Sergio Perez talked about spots of rain on the back straight partway through Q2. We don't think it's going to affect it, but getting a safe lap in now could well be a prudent thing to do.
And the general temperature of the track as well, we've seen all weekend long, or certainly this morning. Yes, it was a bit wetter, but getting heat into the tyres is so crucial around here. Air temperature at the moment, 22.3 degrees. Track temperature, 31.1 degrees, so much cooler from yesterday's running, as Max Verstappen now trundles to the end of the pit lane, ready to head out with 10 minutes on the board.
Yeah, that's a really good point, you know, because in the dry conditions yesterday, the track temperature was up at 50 degrees. We're now just over 30 degrees. That's a huge difference, and it does really impact how you prepare your tyres for that fast lap. How much weaving you got to do, how much braking and heavy braking, how many burnouts you have to do to get the tyres into the right zone. It does have an impact, and getting it right is critical to making your car work. As I said earlier on, it makes a huge difference if the tyres are not in the right window. It simply doesn't work. So that preparation has to be very meticulously planned.
Those grey clouds still looking very ominous above the skies here at the Hungaroring, but so far the rain has stayed away, and Leclerc in his Ferrari is coming around the final corner now, ready to start his first flying lap of this session. Ricciardo just ahead of him, and Ocon also on fast flying laps too. Lando Norris just starts his first flyer, so the next couple of minutes going to be quite telling. And Leclerc getting a big twitch on the front end there coming out of turn one, though. Not the best start to his lap.
Yeah, that's not the best start, no. He was a very nervous exit of turn one, fighting at the steering wheel. Would have cost him time. It's not the be-all and end-all. They'll have another chance, of course, as the session goes on. We'll see what the first split is. 28.3 is the fastest of anybody so far, but of course I think only Daniel Ricciardo has gone through ahead of him so far, so that's not necessarily representative. Nice and tidy from here on in as he comes to the chicane of turns 6 and 7, just about inside track limits, and on he goes.
Into the middle sector now, approaching turn number 10. So important to carry a good flow through that middle sector. You're quickly through. It's like a roller coaster ride. It brings you and spits you out into the rundown of the 90-degree right-hander of turn number 12. Keeps it nice and tight within track limits for Charles Leclerc for the time being. Round the left-hand sweeper, the penultimate corner. Pit lane entry to your right. You bring the car, drag it over to the left-hand side of the track before swinging it into the right-hander. And the final, turn number 14. DRS wide open for Charles Leclerc. Crosses the line. It's fastest, a 1:17.9 ahead of Ocon and Ricciardo. What can Lando Norris put on the board? He goes up to second fastest, but Carlos Sainz currently going quickest of them all at the moment. Sainz now, you hear, right on board with him, fastest by almost half a second from his teammate, a 1:17.5 from Carlos Sainz. Jenny.
Yeah, worth bearing in mind, 8 of the last 10 Hungarian Grand Prix have been won from the front row, so you definitely want to start on the front row here.
Times changing all the time. Sainz fastest ahead of Leclerc. Now Lewis Hamilton up into third spot. A 1:18.1. His teammate George Russell now crosses the line, goes quicker. Second fastest, but no one quite catching up with Sainz at the moment.
Yeah, Verstappen doesn't look like he's going to do it either, does he?
He doesn't. Max Verstappen coming out of the final corner at the moment in this final part of qualifying. The reigning champion sets his first competitive lap time. It's only 7th fastest. It's 1.3 seconds off the pace. Just under 7 minutes to go. We're setting the top 10 and finding who will start Sunday's Hungarian Grand Prix on pole position. Carlos Sainz currently has the fastest lap time ahead of George Russell and Charles Leclerc. We're seeing replays of why Max Verstappen lost so much time, and it was coming into turn 2, a lock-up on the front left, running deep, and well, that scored the whole lap. Here's his radio.
Oh, I don't know what happened, but front end rear grip is very bad.
Well, Verstappen there, just reiterating that. Welcome to listeners joining us on BBC Radio 5 Live. This is live action from the Hungarian qualifying underway with myself, Harry Benjamin. Alongside me is former chief F1 mechanic for McLaren, Mark Priestley. Down on the ground in the pits is Jenny Gao. Just 6 minutes and 5 seconds remain to find out who will start on pole position. Carlos Sainz, at the moment in his Ferrari, is the one sitting pretty. Max Verstappen, now on the back foot, has to go again.
He is, yeah, after looking a little more comfortable, Verstappen, even than Leclerc earlier on in this session. He's struggled with that first lap with that lock-up that won't necessarily ruin the day for him. He's got another chance. There's still 5.5 minutes to go, but it's Carlos Sainz, even of the two Ferraris right now, looking most comfortable. A half-second gap from Sainz to his teammate Leclerc, with George Russell in the Mercedes sat between the two of them.
It's setting up to be a cracker, Jenny.
Certainly is. Carlos Sainz has only had one pole so far this season. Compare that to Charles Leclerc, 7 pole positions so far this season, although he's only been able to convert 3 of them into the win. The stat I gave a little bit early on, I'll repeat it for the people that have just joined us, 8 out of the last 10 Hungarian Grand Prix have been won from the front row. So starting here at this very small, petite, kind of, I suppose it's a little bit like a go-kart track. Starting at the front row, so important if you want a chance of winning this.
It really is, with now 5 minutes to go. Most of the cars, if not all of them, back into the pit lane. A little bit of a lull, a few tweaks, a tyre change, and we'll get out for a final run at it. Sainz currently with provisional pole, ahead of George Russell. Leclerc is 3rd, Hamilton 4th, Fernando Alonso is in 5th. A second back at the moment in 6th is Lando Norris. Then it's Max Verstappen, who'll need to go again after making a mistake on his last flying lap in 7th, ahead of Esteban Ocon in 8th. Valtteri Bottas in the Alfa Romeo currently in 9th, and last of the runners, 10th at the moment, is the McLaren of Daniel Ricciardo. All to play for though at the moment, but can anybody get close to Sainz, who has whipped that lap time? Not out of nowhere, he's fast, but to have nearly half a second on the rest of the field at this stage, pretty mighty.
It really is, yeah. And this is it then. Everybody in the pits right now, a brand new set of soft tyres on every single one of the cars. The red-walled soft tyres, the softest, the stickiest, the fastest. They wouldn't last too long in a race situation, but for qualifying, that's exactly what you want. And any moment now, with just under 4 minutes to go, we'll start to see them all peel out and only get one more shot at securing that all-important pole position.
The grandstands are packed. They're ready for this pole fight out, Jenny.
Yeah, 100,000 people here today watching all these cars, seeing who will be in pole position. A lot of them Max Verstappen fans, but a lot of Tifosi, the Italian fans here as well. They'll be cheering on Sainz and Leclerc. And I tell you what, their boss, Mattia Binotto at Ferrari, says he thinks they have to go out there and get 1-2 this weekend. A lot of pressure on the shoulders of these Ferrari drivers.
Certainly is, though, as they start to make their way out onto the track. Leclerc out there, Alonso, Ocon and his Alpine leaving, as well as Verstappen and Perez gearing up to get out on track. Lewis Hamilton just taking a little bit more time. Track evolution, track management, traffic management going to be crucial in these last few stages. Of course, only 10 cars on track, but you don't want to have any kind of traffic interrupting your fast run.
No, that's right. And it's pressure, of course, is a huge thing here. This is where the pressure's at its highest of the entire day. This is where things really matter. And I think the drivers that have been able to build up to this consistently without having the incidents. We've seen drivers spin, we've seen drivers have big moments, have tough laps where they've struggled, lock-ups from Verstappen earlier on. All of these tiny little things start to play on your mind when you go into the all-important lap, because there's only one shot here, just over 2 minutes. They're all on an out lap, and then they've got to go for it.
I have no power.
Okay, stand by.
And that is the sound of the reigning champion, Max Verstappen, who we ride on board with, saying he's got no power. But the car, well, it's moving forward.
Yeah, it's relative, of course, isn't it? No power compared to what he's used to. That may well be that it's a setting. Quite often there's just a setting that maybe they haven't tweaked from when he was last in the garage a moment ago, and that might be an easy fix. Let's hope it's that, because what we really want to see is a battle between F1's two fastest drivers right now, Charles Leclerc and Max Verstappen, maybe Carlos Sainz as well. And could the Mercedes even join that battle?
Could I fail 2-1? Fail 21, please.
No power.
Okay, stand by.
So that is his engineer telling him to fail a sensor, which he can do from the steering wheel, change one of the switches, which will just shut down a sensor that might have failed and might be affecting the systems on the car. They can do that and go to an alternative or a default setting that should, in theory, bring back that peak performance he's after.
Well, we'll keep you abreast of how that unfolds as Leclerc starts a flying lap, as does his teammate Carlos Sainz, perhaps now seeing that and maybe daring to breathe a slight sigh of relief. Here's Max.
Nothing works.
Nothing works. He hasn't gone into the pit lane, though. He's carrying around to start a lap, Jenny.
Yeah, he certainly is. Just coming in front of me at the final turn. He's in front of Lewis Hamilton in the Mercedes. It didn't look like that car was firing on all cylinders. I can confirm.
Thank you, Jenny. Well, fast laps now being set. Carlos Sainz going even quicker at the moment. He is currently on provisional pole, and he is trying to convert that into a second career pole. Last time out, he converted that pole in Silverstone into a first Grand Prix victory. Will that be playing on his mind today? He'll be trying to fight off his teammate Charles Leclerc. At the moment, he's got nearly a half a second gap. It's going to be Leclerc, though, who's going to come across the line first, but it's not as quick as Sainz in the first sector. It's slightly quicker in the middle sector. Charles Leclerc crosses the line. It's only second for Charles Leclerc, just thousandths of a second back from Carlos Sainz, but Sainz has lost a lot of lap time in the middle sector. He's currently on provisional pole. This is the sound riding on board with the Ferrari driver, the Spaniard, looking for a second career pole. He takes the checkered flag, and it is pole for Carlos Sainz at the moment, but faster times being set. Can Max Verstappen try and recover that power setting? Lando Norris comes across the line. It's third for the McLaren racer, but all eyes on George Russell.
No, go on, try to fix this issue.
As Max Verstappen squanders and struggles with his power output in that Red Bull, he's currently 10th and last. George Russell coming around the final bend now. It's pole for George Russell. Is it a first career pole for George Russell in the Mercedes? A 1:17.3 ahead of Carlos Sainz and Charles Leclerc. The Mercedes pit wall look on. Hamilton comes into the pits. The checkered flag is flying. No one is going quicker at the moment. George Russell, take a bow in that Mercedes, puts it on pole for the Hungarian Grand Prix. George Russell celebrating, waving his fist there. Now the Mercedes team dare to believe it. He'll start second, he'll start first. Second will be Carlos Sainz. Charles Leclerc in third, Norris fourth, Ocon the top five.
You made it! Come on! Woo! Come on, boys! Yes! Woo! Come on! You beauty! You beauty!
What?
Amazing! We needed that. Well done.
What a sensational lap time from George Russell to take an unexpected pole position here in Hungary. He'll start ahead of the Ferraris of Carlos Sainz and Charles Leclerc. Lando Norris is fourth ahead of Esteban Ocon on the Alpine, who gets into the top five ahead of his teammate Fernando Alonso. Lewis Hamilton could only manage seventh ahead of Valtteri Bottas in eighth. Daniel Ricciardo will start ninth, and power issues for Max Verstappen, who couldn't set a properly fast lap time. He'll start from 10th.
That was not... No points for Saturday. Let's go tomorrow. Amazing.
Well, he's right there, Mark. No points for Saturday, but finally, a first pole, Mr. Saturday, in prime position to do a Mr. Sunday.
I was just going to say, they called him Mr. Saturday during his Williams days, and he's done it again. What a lap. Saw it coming all the way through. Just lots of little purple mini sectors creeping in. The big disappointment, though, Red Bull. Max Verstappen 10th, Sergio Perez 11th.
Jenny, he gets out of his car, he's celebrating. Russell, the man on top.
His hand fist pumps the air as he climbs off his Mercedes, just slaps it around the gills to say, I've done it, finally, I'm in pole position. But my word, this will be absolute music to the ears of Ferrari as well. Verstappen with technical issues, meaning that he only qualifies in P10 around a circuit that is so difficult to overtake on, as George Russell gets loads of congratulations from his Mercedes team that are standing by to celebrate. The championship could well come alive again. We thought it was over 63 points the difference between Verstappen and Leclerc, but maybe reliability still has a factor, a part to play in the twists and turns of 2022.
Wow. What a qualify that turned out to be. Now, this has absolutely no information, but you just said there, Jenny, 63 the gap between Leclerc and Verstappen for the top of the timings. Whose car number is number 63? Is the man on pole position. George Russell, as Toto Wolff goes round the Mercedes garage giving a pat on the back of all the team members there. Well, no one saw that one coming, I don't think. Out of nowhere for George Russell.
No one saw it coming. This is exactly what Ferrari needed, isn't it? Because George Russell, whether they can hang on in a race situation, I don't know, but the two Ferraris sat right behind him are in great position to take advantage of that.
Charles, maybe not the result you wanted today, but do you take any satisfaction in the fact that your main rival in the championship is only 10th?
Yeah, I mean, mostly we are focusing on ourselves. So today's not been a great day. I've been struggling massively with the tyres and just had a lot of inconsistency to put the tyres in the right window with those conditions, and so I struggled to put a lap together. But we'll look into it. I'm pretty sure we've got the pace in the car to come back a bit more at the front tomorrow, so we'll focus on that, and hopefully we have a better Sunday.
Well, your overall pace at the Ferrari garage this weekend has been pretty impressive, so does that give you comfort for tomorrow's race, which seems to be in your favour?
Yeah, the pace is there, so we just need to understand what went on with the tyres today, and I'm pretty sure that we can come back tomorrow.
Good luck for tomorrow then.
Charles Leclerc in third, speaking to Naomi Schiff, who will now hand the mic and start chatting to our P2 man, Carlos Sainz.
Carlos, congratulations. It seemed to be your qualifying today, but just at the last minute, George got the pole position. You seem to be much more comfortable in that Ferrari at the moment.
Yeah, definitely. Feeling better and better every race and every qualifying session today. I felt like I had the pace to do the pole position. It went away from us there in the last sector with a few snaps through the lap, but congratulations to George, because he must have done a pretty good lap there in the American, and we will race from P2 tomorrow.
Well, we saw you come through the field in France, so we know that you know how to battle. This track is not easy to overtake on, but do you have the hopes that you can win the race tomorrow? Yeah,
I think we have the pace. Obviously, start and the tire management will play a key role, like always. The Mercedes pace is a bit of an unknown, and we will have to see how the race plays out tomorrow, and if we can get them at the start, then better. But I think it will be an exciting race.
Okay, well, we wish you the best of luck.
Thank you.
Thank you. George, a massive congratulations. The fans are obviously extremely happy for you. Your first pole position in Formula One. How are you feeling?
Over the moon, absolutely buzzing. I mean, yesterday was probably our worst Friday of the season, and everybody last night was working so hard. We didn't really know what direction to go in. And then that last lap, got around turn one, mega turn one, went around turn two. Turn two was mega. And the lap time just kept on coming. And I came across the line, looked at the screen, and so we went P1, and that was an incredible feeling. Well, it's obviously an incredible personal moment for you, but it's also an incredible moment for Team Mercedes. So are you telling us that Mercedes is back? I don't know, to be honest. We need to look into it and understand where that came from today. There's a few ideas we have. At the end of the day, there's no points for qualifying. But we generally have good race pace, but the Ferraris looked very fast on Friday. But we're going to be absolutely going for it. But either way, that was a pretty special day, no doubt.
Okay, well, massive congratulations again.
Thank you very much.
Well, I never. George Russell is on pole position for the Hungarian Grand Prix, his first career pole. And as you could hear from his voice, a pretty emotional one. And Toto Wolff was like a proud father, Mark Priestley, pacing up and down. And then at that moment when he managed to secure pole, the pride was bursting from the bottom Mercedes.
Yeah, amazing. It really was just a stunning lap that, you know, as you said, didn't really come out of nowhere as such, because they have been strong. But this was really a moment where they clearly got the tyres switched on. They got them into that sweet spot where they've been struggling all weekend, but they did it when it mattered. And George, Mr. Consistency, did it under huge pressure. And when Carlos Sainz thought he had it in the bag, pulled something incredibly special out.
I mean, you'd have to say he's in with a chance. He's got a shot of being able to win this, hasn't he? It's a long actual run down to turn one, 444 metres down to turn one. But it'll start with Sainz next to him and Leclerc behind him. It's great.
It's set out to be an absolute cracker. We didn't get the rain and the weather that we thought might make it slightly spicy, but out of nowhere for George Russell to get that pole. He is alongside, I think, the faster Ferraris, and Sainz actually looking like he really had the pace over Leclerc there. A little bit more in hand for Sainz to come, who looked a bit disappointed with that P2. It's all going to be at the start for Russell. If he can get in front and hold it, then there's hope.
OK, let me ask you a question. What on earth happened to Lewis Hamilton? I was too transfixed on George. It's P7.
Yeah, we've been asking ourselves the same question here. We didn't see his lap on the screen, so
I'll ask him.
Yeah, we don't know. If you can find out from Lewis, if you can go and hunt him down and get an answer, then we'd all appreciate it.
Well, luckily he gets delivered to me, so I'm sure he'll be ecstatic to have to speak to me. But make sure you check out the Checkered Flag podcast post-qualifying. We will be talking about everything that's happened. You'll hear a little bit more from George Russell, his first ever Formula One pole position. We'll be speaking to the Ferrari boys as well. And Max Verstappen will start P10 after reliability issues. You could not make it up. The twist and turn in this championship are incredible. 63 points is his lead at the moment. What will it be after tomorrow? The Ferrari boys will want to have something to say about it. Make sure you join us. The race will get off at 2 o'clock, just ahead of the final England versus Germany. It's going to be a great day. This has been an IMG production for BBC Radio 5 Live.